I'm David Beatty, I'm the Director of Technology here at ISS. I've thrown out my email address. I can show you at the end again if you'd like to see it there. Go write it down. I'm happy for you to call or email me, or if you want to react to what we're talking about today, or just ask questions about technology and kids, even learning and technology and kids, or any combination of those things. All right. Just a quick background. I've worked. This is the 4th International School where I worked. Started in Kenya in 1998, and then worked in Qatar, India, and now Norway. It sounds probably a lot like some of your lives as you've lived around the world. Just thought I'd let you know I've done a similar job at a lot of places around the world working with technology in schools. All right. We are going to have a little bit of discussion among your tables today, so don't feel pressured by that. It's supposed to be just relaxed, and it helps us kind of talk through a few different subjects. And I've also added a few slides and pieces of content here that are from some of your feedback. So Catherine, who's back here in the corner, sent out a survey a while back and said what kinds of things you want to know about technology. So if it feels a little disjointed, I have sort of picked some themes that I saw that came out of your feedback. So sort of near the end, there might be a few that you're like, well, how does that match up? But I've tried to actually add a few things, so it might feel a little bit random at the end. But the reason I want to start with that question is we talk a lot about technology, and we talk a lot about devices themselves. And so I just want you to think, even the sort of funny video of the kids figuring out what a Walkman was, for them, for us, that was technology years ago, and that sort of thing can change. It's definitely a moving target. So as we talk about tech, I think now we think about smartphones a lot, and mobile devices like iPads and tablets and laptops. But that Walkman used to be technology. In fact, when the Walkman came out, I'm sure people were like, oh my goodness, everyone's just going to be in their own little worlds with headphones on and never talk to anyone ever for the rest of their lives. Like, it's over, you know? And sure, we still do some of that, don't we? Because now we just use a different device and we put headphones in our ears. But I mean, it also had, you know, it's just benefits of technology, being able to listen to music whenever you wanted, and it was portable and that sort of thing. So just want to bring up that point that as technology changes, we tend to analyze it anew all the time. And I think it kind of goes through waves over time. So think about that as we think about technology today. I want to say one more thing about tech. It's actually, technology actually amplifies, right? So this is an opinion I've had for quite a long time, that tech makes good things better and makes bad things worse. It sort of acts as an amplifier, all right? And especially the internet, with the advance of the internet, it's definitely that way too. Most kids are, you're right, they're not answering the phone. In fact, some kids I know, they're like, it's ringing, like, what do I do? I looked at my wife's phone the other day, and I was just looking through the data, because I was adding some data on her phone. And it said her total usage, total talk time on the phone was 3 hours. She's had the phone for more than 2 years, all right? And so that just showed me right away that she's not calling people on this phone. I mean, you know, you might call the taxi company, and that's 1 minute or something like that. But she doesn't like call her friends and chat and chat and chat and chat. But that's how a lot of us grew up, was before mobile phones. We were hogging the phone line, right? Like your dad or mom was saying, get off the phone, or they would pick up on the other line. That's the world that we lived in. But our kids are doing the exact same thing. They're just using text to do it. All right. So they need data, not phone credit time. But by the way, that's why all the mobile phone companies now say like unlimited talk time. Because they know nobody really cares. It's just an advertisement. Yeah. Nobody's going to use that all that time. There's a great story in a book that I recently read about. There's a woman, and I'll show you the book at the end. And some of this is inspired by the recent reading of this book. But she tells the story of she was in the United States, so she goes to an American football game, if you know what that is. They wear all the pads and stuff like that. So she goes to this football game, and she watches how parents and kids are using their technology. And her quick snapshot of the game, and this is not necessarily representative of all life, was the kids were using their tech to connect with other kids. That was their main goal, was socializing with other kids. So they would say, where are you? I'm on the third bleacher, to the left, and it felt like they were on the phone all the time. But then when they saw them, how are you? that sort of thing. And the parents were actually mostly using it to either check their work, email, and kind of zone out, like if they felt a little awkward, like I don't really know anybody here, and I'm here kind of for my kids, and it's halftime, so they kind of got on their phone. And it was a different, they were both using the technology a lot. You know, we are using it as parents, and the kids are too, but their main goal was quite a bit different. And that's not true of everyone. I mean, I know we like to socialize as well and use our devices for that. And some kids will use the devices to actually check out. But I wanted to bring up this point so that we can all think about it together. What's the real goal? And I think as anyone, we tend to see things from our own perspective. So as parents, we tend to think, when you see your kid using their phone, you tend to think, they must be doing what I would be doing on my phone all that time. But they're not necessarily doing what you would be doing on your phone. They're doing what they want to do, which is connect with other kids and other people. So what did you guys think of, we kind of started the conversation already. Anybody have an idea? Why do we love these things?
It keeps us connected.
Keeps us connected, yeah. I think that's a big one in the international world, because kids are leaving schools and that sort of thing, and they can, I mean, my son is in 2nd grade and he can email his friend that left in December. It keeps us connected. What else?
Updated as
Families together with Skype, family ties together.
Yeah, sure. Very similar to the connected thing. Yeah, it keeps your family tied together. Yeah.
You can get information anytime you want.
Yeah. There's an answer for everything. Yeah. It does sort of kill the party sometimes, doesn't it? What's that?
It may not be correct, but there's an answer.
It may not be correct, but there's an answer.
It's on the internet, it's fact.
It must be true. Yeah, somebody over here.
Our work easier.
What's that?
They make our work easier. I mean, we can travel very fast and reach the destination quicker.
Yeah.
And we can refer only to the mobile phones and
Yeah, it makes our work
use
easier.
technology too.
Definitely. I mean, I'd say, maybe 50 or 100 years ago, people said, well, in 2016, we'll just be sitting around with our feet up and doing nothing, because the computers will do it all.
Yeah.
I think it's also enabled us to get more done, so we're more productive.
This is domotics as well. Domotics is when you have a smart house.
Oh, right, yes.
That's everything for
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point.
You don't have to memorize the recipe.
You don't have to memorize the recipe. That's a good one. I have a Pinterest board that has the limited number of things that I know how to make are all on my list.
It helps us in our everyday life. I can buy my parking ticket, my bus ticket. I'm lost. I look at my Google map.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, sure. It makes life easier, and I think that is an area that is becoming more and more advanced very quickly. I don't know if you use Google Calendar, but I use Google Calendar, and they have a new feature called Goals, which really connects your personal life to your calendar. And so you can now say, add a goal, and it says, what do you want to do? Exercise more? Exercise more. How often do you think you will be able to do that? Twice a week. And then it says, I'll find a spot for you in your calendar. It's pretty cool, actually. Would you say you don't want that?
The problem there is, it can't go run for you.
No, you still have to do it.
But that's what I'm saying, is I almost at some point see a small terrifying glimpse that we could be the people in Wall-E.
Right,
They're just staring at the screen
Yeah.
and not being active.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought that was a joke until this touch.
Yeah.
It becomes so addictive to have it scrolling. Oh yes, the child's talking to me, but I'm here.
Yeah, doing two things at once. Definitely very true. Okay, so one of the things that you guys have many of you just brought up is we want to be social, okay? And this is why we love devices. Specifically, we're talking about kids mostly today. This is why they love these devices. It really isn't about the apps. As much as we're like, oh, there's this new Snapchat feature that we were just talking about, and the kids love the apps. They really don't, and at least in my observation. I mean, a few kids always want the latest phone, mostly because their friends have it. But they're not necessarily into like the specs. There's a few kids that kind of geek out on that sort of thing. But mostly they just want the apps to connect them to other people. So if Snapchat disappeared tomorrow, people would just say, all right, what's next? Jump on the new thing and go with that. All right. So it really isn't about apps or devices. It's really about people. All right. Let's talk about privacy for just a second. Okay. This topic comes up a lot with parents, so I thought I would just jump in and a few of you asked some questions about it on the feedback board. Kids are really funny about privacy online. All right. The things that they post, I think as parents, sometimes we're horrified that they would post something online, and we have to remind them, like, you know, the whole world just saw what you just posted, right? And it's true, it definitely happens. But I think there's a couple of factors that come to my mind when I think about this. The first one is that the privacy settings can be complicated. All right, I think Facebook in particular has a bad reputation for this. I don't think it necessarily deserves it because they've come a long way. In the beginning, they made a lot of changes, and you would just get a notification that said Facebook has updated their settings. Would you like to accept? And everybody just said yes. We didn't really care. But they now, in the last year or two, they now have a really nice little privacy checker. So in Facebook, in the top right-hand side, you can just say, run the privacy checker, and it says, look, here's what's happening. You know, here's who can see what, and you can just make all the changes right there on Facebook. So it has a bad rap for being, tending to expose everything to the world. And they did some of that in the beginning, but I think that they've learned their lesson. Anyway, that's just about Facebook. But the stuff does change quickly, so kids tend to they're not reading the end user license agreement. You guys are not reading it either, all right? I'm not even reading it, I'm the director of technology. So many times they'll just assume that the world can see it, and then they post sort of accordingly, all right? Let me see if I can explain this. A lot of kids will use some kind of code or something like that in a status update, or even an image that's supposed to portray something. So instead of trying to figure out settings and groups of people, like I'm going to make a setting of these friends and a setting of these friends, like the people I play football with and people I'm in, this class with, they don't do that. They'll just use some sort of, they just assume that the world can see it, and they'll just use a little bit of code or something like that, or the message is a little bit cryptic, and that's how they'll communicate on as a status update or on Instagram or on Snapchat or whatever. It's true, kids do tend to post things that are more public, but if you think about it, this is their social world, all right? And I won't talk long about it, but when we grew up, you tended to like hang out with your friends or go ride a bike. You might be at the mall, or you'd hang out in the park or something like that. But our kids tend to be very busy, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Kids tend to be very busy, and so many times you can talk to a kid, they'll say, well, I have homework, I don't have time to go socialize with my friends. I think most kids would actually rather have 3 or 4 friends over to their house and just hang out for a while than they would to get online and chat with them. I think really if you ask them, most kids really don't prefer this. You feel like they do because they're doing it a lot, but they really don't get the opportunity. And I mean, I'm a parent myself, and I know how busy our lives are because my wife and I both work, and the kids have homework, and they're young still, but they have homework and they have sports stuff after school or things in the evening, and we have things on the weekend. So if I look at my week, there isn't that much time to do play dates and that sort of thing. And my kids will ask when I have so-and-so over, I'm like, it's not going to work on Thursday, maybe in 3 Wednesdays that will work. So I just want to point that out, that there's this interconnection between our social lives and how kids use the technology, because this sort of becomes the park, all right, or the mall or whatever, because if they don't have the chance to go out, it's more difficult, so they want to connect with their friends, so they're going to get online and connect with them. The positive side of modeling, okay, so I think kids actually learn. We tend to think of devices and our kids using devices as, well, we maybe not tend to think of it as negative, but the discussion often goes to this like negative thing, my kids always on the device. But they actually are learning to socialize and how to communicate. The internet is not going away, devices are not going away either. In fact, there's going to be more and more sort of wearables and that sort of thing in the future. And so the way you use your device and the way kids are learning to use their devices is really, really important. It's a bit of an extreme example, but I often remind parents that if you kept every device away from your child and they had no internet access, at some point in their lives, most likely when they graduate and go to college, but if you kept them in your house for another 30 years, at some point in their lives they're probably going to get on the internet and without you around. So we do have a responsibility, and as a school we share that with you guys. I mean, ultimately you're the parents. We have a responsibility to model that and be an example to our kids, and so they've got to learn how to balance that use of technology and how to use it well. And even, I would say, even how to socialize. Okay, so my example before when I said they're not at the mall, they're not at the park as much, they're socializing through devices and through social media. So we have a responsibility to help them learn how to do that, all right? And to recognize that tech amplifies, and so they have the ability to bring a whole group of people up or bring a whole group of people down according to what they say and how they act. Okay. Related to this idea is that it's all about relationships. Okay. I would say often I talk with parents that have specific questions about devices themselves, and people want to know, how do I lock it down? How do I make it not ring after a certain time? How do I get a report, a weekly report of all the websites I've been to, that sort of thing. All that is actually possible, and I've got some links in here to tools that help you do that sort of thing. And I think for some parents that just puts them at ease, like, now I know what they're doing on the internet. I know that. But I've got to say, it really comes back to relationship. All right, your relationship with your kids. And I know that's super, super complicated. You and your children is a very personal thing for in your own lives. But in my experience, usually people that have a issue or a major concern about their kids, there's something about relationship. It might not be your relationship with your child, but maybe their relationship with their friends. Like there may be something going on that you need to figure out. And I think as parents, you probably know that. But I think technology is an easy thing to look at for a fix. So it's easy to say, that's it, I'm taking your phone away. All right, I've had too much of this, no more phone. But kids will find some other way to try to fix that relationship that's having a problem, or try to get into that relationship that they want to get into. They'll find some other way to do that. So just encourage you guys to think, and I know you know this, but to think about the relationship piece of it before the rest of it. I mean, kids do thrive on boundaries, and so if you just say, anything goes, I don't care, take your phone with you, and all that sort of thing, I think kids thrive on those boundaries. They want someone to tell them, like, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and here's how I see it. This is a bit out of order, but I just wanted to talk about the use of tech and how much our kids use technology, and I want you guys to think about, we won't talk it together, but I want you guys to think about what's an ideal week. Because I think a lot of parents, at least in conversation with me, will say, my kid's using technology all the time. So what is an ideal week for you and for your kids? And I think it's a good exercise as a parent to kind of look at the time in the week, think about what's an ideal week for you? What would you like your kids to be doing? And what's realistic? So they're going to be doing a certain amount of homework and sports and playing with their friends, playing outside, that sort of thing. I don't know about you, but for me, definitely, life just sort of catches up really fast and it gets out of control, and I realize 3 weeks later I haven't even gone for a walk with my daughter for 10 minutes. So it's just a bit of pre-planning and for you to think about the tech itself. But also I'm going to come back to this idea of your kids socializing and how do they do that sort of thing. So if you don't want them to be texting their friends all the time, then maybe you can find the time every couple of weeks when they actually can get together. Because if it's been 3 or 4 weeks since they've really had a fun time with their friends, except for at school, of course, then maybe it's time to do a little more of that. So it's hard to say, like, you shouldn't be texting your friends so much, but they have to have that outlet because they're social human beings. All right. Okay, future effect. I'll go through it quickly. Some people asked about this was my request again, like what's coming up in the future of tech. I've got my little list here. I mentioned wearable tech before. So smart watches, of course, are very popular, which I'm sure you know. Google Glass and this sort of other wearable tech is just something from my observation that will become more and more mainstream. Okay. Maker spaces and design. So if you haven't heard about maker spaces or design, then we're probably not doing our job well enough in terms of advertising the makerspaces. Maybe I need to do my job better. But just creating things, designing things. You know, the idea behind that is there's so much is easy to make now. The manufacturing process is now down to like 3 months. You go from idea to device in 3 months, right? So you can almost make anything. So now there's more of a focus on the design itself and on the making of the things themselves. So our design technology department downstairs is a fantastic example of that. So get your kids in those classes, definitely. That's my plug for design technology. Where those kids actually build circuits and program chips and make things respond, and they create things out of electronics and hardware and all sorts of stuff. Yesterday I was down there with Mr. McGill myself, and I wrote a little program that used a sensor and made a light come on, and I just saw how all that worked together. So we know how to use the devices, but do we know how they actually work? And if we don't, then we're not going to be the ones that are designing them in the future. Somebody else is going to be. So anyway, that's my plug for design. Plug for design technology.
Middle school or is that after school?
It's all. It's 6, 7, 8. It's a required class in 6 and 7. It's an elective in 8, and then 9 is IGCSE and it's IB as well. So there's DT classes from 6th grade to 12th grade. Virtual reality. I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but being able to what's that? Samsung. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people trying it in different ways. I think this is something that will be interesting to see as it progresses in the future. We've been talking about that for a very long time, so maybe this is the right time for virtual reality to emerge as a new technology. The last one I'll say is individualized learning. So this one relates directly to school. Your kids should not be limited to what classes are available at ISS. They can learn anything. In fact, you guys can learn anything you want to learn, right? If you want to learn Mandarin, just because ISS doesn't offer it, there's no reason why your kids couldn't learn it. There's an app for it. There's a whole lot of massive online open courses that you can take. You can take half of MIT's content right online for free, right? You can take high level grad classes in design or language or robotics or whatever for free from MIT, right? You don't get the paper, although that's even changing, okay? Many times it's not graded, but that's changing too. So anything you want to learn is out there. And so when you talk about the future of technology, I think that's a major one for us in keeping up with kids. Learn anything you want, all right? Don't be limited to just what's available or what's around you. Okay? It's fantastic. There's a link in there to that. edX is a great platform that has like classes about anything. So kids will come into our tech office sometimes and say, I want to learn coding, I want to learn more. And it's all available to them. Sometimes there's a cost, sometimes there's not a cost, but if you want to learn how to make an app for an iPad, there's nothing stopping you. All right, so individualized learning and being able to learn anything as you want. I think that will have a dramatic impact on universities in the future, because even us as schools and universities, we tend to be the traditional pathway of we must learn this in school, we must go to university and learn this and this and this. There's more and more nano degrees and little things coming out where I'm a specialist in this, I've learned this, this, and this, and this. I'm going to put that together and I'm the person you need for the job. All right. So I think over the years we'll see more people, more businesses that are less concerned about I've got a degree from this place, all right, and more about you have these skills and you collected it from there and there and there, you've proven it and you're ready to take the job. Okay. You think we see the word addiction, you tend to think of like a needle in the arm, all right? And I really am not. When I say the word addiction, I'm not really thinking. There are definitely extremes where you need to go to a treatment facility and that sort of thing. I'm thinking more of a good casual version of internet addiction that a lot of parents like to talk about, which is my kid's always on the phone. Anyway, I'm not an expert on addiction, but I thought if you guys have ideas, I would also add in a few ideas for you. My main thing with this is nothing should control you. Okay, so if you feel, and I guess this applies to us as adults as well, but mostly I'm talking about your kids. If you feel like this is sort of steering your child's life, and there's no way they can live without it, sort of like our funny video here. If there's a little bit of reality in that, then that's something you need to talk about with your kids. Okay. I know my own kids are second grade, fourth grade, and sixth grade, and my son in particular, who's in second grade, he would play on the iPad for 4 days straight. I'm sure. Like he wouldn't even get up and eat. Okay. And so as a parent, I have to be the one that says, all right, we're done. We played that one game, and now we're done with that. As a side note, I try my best to play with him sometimes because I don't want him to be in his world. I want to know his world. So, and even though he's in second grade and most of that's Minecraft and a little bit of Jurassic World dinosaur game. So I try to get in there and actually, and then you guys know this as parents, but I'm just sharing with you kind of what I find successful. It's funny, if I will sit down with him and look at his new dinosaur on Jurassic World for 5 minutes, then somehow he feels like we're done, okay? But if I am sort of the other person far away saying, 5 more minutes, we're done, okay? He usually wants to like keep playing. This is something I figured out, and I really don't know why it's true, but maybe someone like Jim can tell me. But if I sit with him for 5 minutes, and now that I've seen the dinosaur, then he realized somehow somehow he's okay with that, and then we can go outside and play. So anyway, it's just a little technique that I have discovered, and I don't know really why that's true, but something about me connecting with him and getting into his world for just a minute seems to be really successful. So yeah, my main thing there is if you feel like it's controlling you, you should be in control of that, okay? So if you have that phantom vibration in your pocket or your purse, and you feel like you can't live without it, some of the questions we asked before, and for your kids it's the same thing, they need to think about that. So consider a tech fast, okay, and that's very, very difficult. Again, I'll speak from my own experience. When I've done that with my own kids, if we have a week or a couple of days, or we're going on a trip, and we'll say we're not bringing the devices on this trip, we're going to be gone for a week, and we're not going to bring them, we're not going to use them on the airplane or in the car or whatever. That's usually difficult in the beginning, and my kids will say, but I want to play the game, or they're not quite at the age where they feel like they can't text their friends and communicate with their friends, so that's a little bit different if you have older kids. But I always find that I do get over the hump with them, and they always have a great time, and it doesn't take that long. So the first little bit is difficult, and as a parent, I'll admit, it's quite nice to, you get a nice peaceful ride for that hour up to the cabin or whatever. And it's difficult in the beginning, but I find I really like what happens after the technology is gone and after we've had this break from it. Okay? So consider that tech fast idea for a day or for a weekend or even a whole trip if you're going to be gone for a little while. Summers are that way for our family. We typically will bring devices to use on the airplane and for a little bit of communication and stuff like that. But then we just intentionally spend a lot of time outside and that sort of thing. Yeah. Any other thoughts or ideas about about using the devices in time?
We do audiobooks. Love it. It creates conversation in the car. And also make, shh, I want to hear. That's really great. Can I get a plug-in for the library to get the system that they have in the States where you can get free downloadable audiobooks? Because I have utilized your one little shelf of audiobooks over there.
We're already on it. We're setting it up as we speak, actually.
Thank you.
It's called Overdrive, and
Yes.
you'll hear about it pretty soon. We're in the process of setting it up. Yeah.
We can get it before summer, maybe?
Yes, before summer. We just have to get the accounts set up, but we have the marketplace where we can buy apps. What we're talking about here is an app that lets you download ebooks or check out ebooks from the library or audiobooks. They're both available. And the great thing is you can do it over the summer because even though we're not here and you're not here, you can check them out over the summer and do the audiobook and you have to return it in a week, which means it just disappears from your device. So you'll hear about that. Some of you guys probably have Overdrive as part of like the public library in
Yes,
your
from
country.
London. I have a bedroom in London and I get all
In London too, we're doing the same, but we're going to have our own library front as well. I will, just before we finish up here, I do want, if you want to stay and talk about Edlines / virtual learning environment sort of thing, I would love to have your feedback on that because we're heavily investigating alternatives to Edline. And even a little bit after that, if anybody still has any juice left in them, I would like to talk about the high school laptop program, because high school iPad / laptop program, because we want to talk about using laptops instead of iPads in that school. Okay, so if that does not apply to you, then you're absolutely free to go. But if you do want to stick around, we'll talk about Edline first, and then if anybody still wants to talk about iPads versus laptops, that's fine too. I will make sure that Catherine has a link to this presentation, and please look at the notes, because as you can see, there's not much here. But in the notes, that's where all the links are to important stuff. All right.